to look at what we're doing.
Hey, everybody. We are going live for the first time in a very long time for Top Hat Creative Marketing. This will be on our YouTube channel as well. But I am joined here with a pretty much a Google expert on reviews and stuff. It's Brett, who is not only, my husband, but also an awesome Google specialist. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, how you doing?
Awesome. So he gave me a very long list of stuff that we're going to talk about because we're discussing Google versus everyone else today. And we want to jump in with, we were discussing other platforms like Apple Maps, Bing, Yahoo, Yelp, and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, how all of those are completely different from what happens on Google. Should we start there?
Absolutely.
Okay. All
So
right.
the question that came up is how big is Google's share of your online search? And after diving into things, I wanted to make sure that the old answers still fit. We used to say 80% of everything is Google. And pretty much no matter where I looked, biased, unbiased, everything came up between 71 and 80% of all searches are Google. So that's really, it's still a lot of Google, and then everyone else does certain things. So
Well, and I think it ties into whenever you are talking to somebody and they're like, oh, well, I'll just Google that. I'll Google those stats. I'll Google this. I'll Google that. And it doesn't matter if it's information, if it's looking up a company or a doctor, it's even how to spell things. It's everything. Google's used for everything, right?
exactly, it really is. And people say, well, there's Bing or there's Apple Maps or there's other sources, but most people default to Google and they change their default search engine to Google. So
Mhm.
that really is the standard right now.
So, in regards to that, we were talking about Apple Maps and Yelp. Are those a strong second with their iPhone presence in like using an iPhone versus an Android rather than going to Google?
Right. I've had doctors ask, well, you've got iPhones out there, and iPhones default to Apple Maps, and Apple Maps carries Yelp. So they're on the default search. So that's a
Mhm.
lot of people. There's going to be people out there looking on their iPhones, and they're going to get there. And those numbers just don't lie. Still 71 to 80% have changed their default searches to Google. So, yes, there
Mhm.
is some out there. Yes, we need to pay attention to Yelp, and we need to pay attention to Apple Maps, but it's still Apple Maps has low numbers. Yelp has low numbers compared to Google. So that's the bottom line.
So comparatively, uh, Google more often than not is way better than relying on Apple Maps or Yelp or something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Short answer, yes. Long answer, Google has the users. And since our society loves free stuff
Hmm.
and we're willing to give away our privacy to get that, that's where we are.
Yeah.
There's some interesting differences. So, Apple Maps has greater privacy. And if you choose those privacy settings, you still get the functionality. If you
Mhm.
choose privacy settings with Google, Google doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow you to do the searches. It doesn't allow to take your position on the map and interpolate that with all the searches you're doing and what you've done in the past. And so your experience is much less than it would otherwise be if you gave it full functionality. So when you tell Apple Maps, hey, don't put my location and my personal data with what I'm searching for and tie those two together, it
Mhm.
still functions. Google, on the other hand, has drastically reduced functionality. So it basically doesn't work and you end up turning it back on because you're frustrated. And who cares if I give away things and Big Brother knows where I am and what I'm doing? I've already given away the farm anyway, so we're not going to worry about it. And that's sort
Right.
of where we are as a society.
Well, one thing that I find interesting, a little segue with locating and people not wanting to their phone to know where they are, or whatever, the geolocating. I've noticed that in regards to digital business cards, some other apps that are out there that help you run your business a little better, they have that geo tracking available that you can turn on. So say for example, you and I met at a networking event, I scan and get your digital business card, it will geolocate it on the map so that I can trigger the memory of where I met you at. And, people are like, oh, well, I want to do that. I want to do this. But again, it's tracking you online.
Yes.
Yeah.
And since Google, the only way for Google to make money or anybody to make money, whether it's Apple Maps or anyone else, is to sell that information because we're not
Mhm.
willing to pay for a robust system that's going to do this. If the internet had been set up on a privacy centered model like blockchain,
Mhm.
where the individual has control and shares little bits out to whoever they want to, Google would not be so big or effective as they are and so dominating. But they've got so much information to sell, it just doesn't matter.
Right. Well, and I was looking at my notes. I keep looking over here sideways, guys, for my notes. That Brett gave me a ton of stuff that is just unbelievable that we can talk about. Um, One thing too, and this is something that I stress to clients, is making sure that their Google business page is filled out accurately and completely with all of their information. And you mentioned to me that Apple Maps doesn't allow you to put as much information as Google does.
So you don't have that control. You don't have the
Yeah.
ability to put very specific things in there and share more stuff and have a more robust Google page or Apple page than your competitor. Whereas on Google, you can have a more robust Google page. You can spend time and effort and put videos and uh, services you provide and products that you have and on and on and on videos. And I mean, you can really go deep into a Google page and you've just got a few things you can do with an Apple page.
Right. And another thing in regards to that is with the posts that you can put on. You can literally tie yourself back to another company or nonprofit that you support or something like that so that you start showing up in their algorithms as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so I'm going through my notes because I want to make sure we hit everything. So we were looking at, and we've discussed this in the past because you work with your clients on things and I work with my clients on things, and there's always that one person. It's almost like a dog with a bone in regards to Yelp.
Yes. Um, so Yelp is good. Yelp
Hmm.
has its niche. It's a secondary place for everyone. So Google is first, still by the numbers,
Hmm.
but Yelp is probably a strong second in terms of reviews. It's the secondary place people go. They normally like to get dirt, so they know that there's the nitty gritty in there. The people that really like to sling the hash are on
Hmm.
Yelp. Um, there's a few markets you got to have Yelp. LA,
Hmm.
New York, DC, all need are very very effective at driving business. I've got a plastic surgeon in DC did amazingly well on Yelp,
Hmm.
and that really really helped him do things. But for most people, it's secondary. Um, you need to put some effort here, and Michelle, you can go over all the different things we can do. It takes more effort, though.
It does. It absolutely does. You don't have the functionality with Yelp or even Bing to put as much information as you can put about your business and the services and the products and all of that as you do in Google. And I always refer to it as Google is kind of like Facebook or Instagram, and then Yelp is like Twitter. So it's, Yelp and Twitter are the cocktail party where people talk about things, and it's not necessarily a review or anything like that. whereas Facebook, Instagram, and Google are taken more seriously with the name recognition, brand recognition, and the more functionality that they offer.
Yes. And you can use Yelp. You have to find Yelpers. You
Mhm.
have to have them have enough reviews. You have to send them to the right place. They need to check in online while they're in your office. I mean, there's a lot of things. And it's going to take more effort to get reviews on Yelp, but you can do it.
Right.
And then we've got everybody else, like you mentioned, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. These have not been monetized, and they're not going to be worth the effort, because to go viral on them and to really get some good content, you're going to need to spend so much effort that if you spent that same effort or half that effort on Google, you'd be far ahead and making a lot more money, having a lot more impact on your business than right now you do on those other platforms.
Well, exactly. Say, for example, you are an orthodontist and you're wanting to get a younger crowd in by using TikTok or Instagram Reels, stories, things like that. The amount of time that you have to spend doing that, you could be working on patients, bringing more patients through the door. Don't get me wrong, TikTok and stuff is fun, and so is Instagram. I have plenty of things that I follow. For example, one woman on the Useless Farm, well, she just works on her farm all day. Obviously, she just walks around with her iPhone and takes video and pictures of everything. You can't do that as a business owner or running a practice. So, tossing those quick little videos in and things like that, you're never going to have a million plus followers if you're a doctor in, Peoria, Illinois.
No, and you don't have
But
a some crazy bird
exactly.
attacking you.
Yeah. Like Karen the emu that attacks the woman on the Useless Farm. But you honestly, if you put that time and effort into Google, if you put some consistency into your social media posts, Facebook lives and things like that, all of that does start tying in together eventually.
Absolutely.
It just has to be consistency.
Yeah. That Google time, spent time on Google is much, much, much more valuable.
Exactly. And it's something that you can do behind the scenes. You can hire, for example, a company like us, a marketing firm that will come in and work with you and get all of that set up for you, show you how to use it, and then you're off to the races. We can absolutely consult with a practice and get them set up. You do the same thing, or we can work with you monthly and help them keep the consistency going, because obviously taking care of their patients or their clients is their number one priority.
Absolutely. And then there's Facebook, but I'm sure that's for in our Facebook Live here, because you've got so much more to say about that. But the bottom line here is that the gorilla sitting on the elephant in the room is still Google. Just
Yes.
done.
It is. I mean, it's in our vocabulary to use for just about anything.
Yep.
Looking up anything, using anything, getting information on anything, you Google it. And then from there, you go on to the cool thing, and I think we should mention this, and I'm sure people notice this. When you go on to Google and you look up a business, it still brings up their Yelp and their
Mhm.
LinkedIn and their Bing, it brings all of that up. So Google is the catch-all. It is literally holding all that information for everything else.
It is, but people visit the Google more than they do the other stuff. It's
Absolutely.
just
Yeah,
what happens. Till that
absolutely.
changes, we're not going to change our models,
Mhm.
because we need to bring ROI. We need to bring effectiveness to what we give these businesses, and that is Google right now.
Exactly.
And it
All
has
right.
been for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I honestly don't see it changing anytime soon, because Google is, um, they're constantly changing things. The algorithms are very fluid. You can speak to this more than I can, but honestly, it's
Absolutely.
almost on a daily basis on some of the
Absolutely.
things that they change, because they're always moving forward.
That they are. It's a moving target. All of the internet is, but Google especially. And being able to be on the top of that and do the little tweaks that every once
Mhm.
in a while come along that separate you from the rest of the people that don't pay attention to their Google page on their small business, just sets you apart and allows you to show up in a search farther away from your practice, farther away from your office, and be able to do better than your competition.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and follow us, you guys here, Top Hat. Follow us on Wednesdays. We're going to get back into doing, even if it's just a Why Wednesday, a quick one video or post to really help you guys get going on your Google online presence, because it's huge. It does actually bring more clients, more patients through your door, and will increase your bottom line for sure. All right. Well, thanks, Brett. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye now.